Yeah.
Cloud Thomas.
I have to admit, I love that really fancy.
Oh, the ones that have the steps. Yeah.
It's on. Inner panel flips out, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
It says here. Do you want to try
I just
one?
make my husband lift
Volume?
me.
Did you mess with that? That's good.
Or I'll be
Beep,
like, catch
beep.
me.
What's this called right here?
Toot toot.
Been having this
Yeah.
pain right here.
Beep beep.
Really? And like the tendon?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you would call it.
How's
Okay,
this?
I'm hearing now when I press the button.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Okay.
We're good?
We lost
She's in the restroom. She'll be right
Okay.
back.
Test, test.
Thank you.
Speak louder, softer.
Ooh, it shatters me. Crackle, crackle. Okay, I had a pin.
And I know we're running a little late, but I'll wait till she's back in. And then has anyone heard from Alan? I did not check my emails today.
Oh, there is one there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was just asking so that I'm tracking whether or not it's. Oh. Oh, was there? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it is 6:05 and I call this meeting to order. I'll start with the flag salute.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And then we'll go right into roll call. Commissioner Boyle,
Here.
Commissioner Whalen,
Here.
Commissioner Sweat, absent, Commissioner Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Elmstead,
Here.
Vice Chair Oler,
Here.
and Chair Elliott present. And since Commissioner Sweat is not here, we want to count him as, I heard there was some discussion last month about counting him as absent or excused. Has anyone heard from him? Okay.
So I think Counselor Rosa just makes him absent.
Okay, sounds good. Next up, with today's agenda, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Going once? Yes, Commissioner
Thank you.
Whalen.
It dovetails in as a result of the presentation by Framework. I am under the presumption that we're going to need extra meetings. So I would consider that perhaps an agenda item instead of part of the Framework presentation, although they really fit together.
Okay,
Thank you.
if it's okay with everyone, I will.
Sorry, we're going to need next extra what? I didn't hear.
So she had mentioned that she would like to add to the agenda as item 7C if we need to consider extra meetings due to the framework presentation and the results of that, or just in general what we have coming with.
Understood.
Yeah, good, because I'm spacing the word. All right. And it's just been a while, so do
But
we want to,
added-
do we have a motion or, yeah?
We need a motion?
Or, I don't know, do we need a motion or just a vote? Or just, do we we just automatically add?
I
it?
think
can't
this is
remember.
also showing the need for a retreat so we could get our policies. But I'm happy
I
to
have
make
the
a motion.
rules, but
I'm
it's
happy to
just-
make a motion that we add to tonight's agenda a discussion of potential additional meetings for the purpose of our comp plan completion.
All right, can I get someone to second that motion?
I'll second.
All right, perfect. Any discussion? All right, with that, we have a motion to add agenda item 7C to consider extra meetings for comp plan agenda items. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. That has been added to our agenda as item 7C. All right, with that, any other additions? Yes.
I think we should have a discussion on meeting absentees. Not that I have the most perfect attendance, but I understand that if you miss 3 meetings, I don't know if it's excused or unexcused, but there should be a discussion of whether that person stays on. And Al does his best, but, and of course, I see him now and again, and I'll have a talk with him, but I don't know if that's something we want to discuss or maybe discuss after next meeting and see if he makes it.
I would definitely,
So a review of attendance policies.
we could definitely put on the February meeting a review of the policies in general for Planning Commission, or the Planning Commission
Can we kick it out to February?
rules and policies.
Sure,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, and since that's moving it to next meeting, if we can, and it sounds like everyone's okay with that, we can skip the formalities there. Okay, with that, I'll take it to citizen participation. I think we have framework presentation, citizen. All right, perfect. And then moving on to agenda item 5A, approval of meetings from December 11th, 2023. Any discussion?
I move to approve the minutes.
So seconded?
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. It's been seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, perfect. Motion passes unanimous. On to the public hearing. All right.
I didn't
so-
give you a script.
No,
but I think
it's
you-
okay.
I think you-
So we have a public hearing to discuss the amendment to Milton Municipal's Code 18.16.320.c.1, the table wetland buffers. It had been, sorry, I was jumping over to the motion, but we're not there yet. So with that, we will go ahead and open up the public hearing at 6:11. There's no one here. Is there any comment corrections? All right, perfect. With that, I will close the public hearing at 6:11. Okay, moving into regular agenda item 7A, amendment to Milton Municipal Code, Table 1 wetland buffers, as previously just discussed in our public hearing. Any comments or questions? This is a nice little one-pager.
Do you want me to
All
do
right,
just
with-
a quick intro?
Sure.
So just a recap of last meeting. It's just an amendment to the wetland buffers table. When the section was updated in 2015, this table titles were not revised to reflect the other changes. And this is supported by the November 7th, 2018 code interpretation by Mark Howlett, who was the Public Works Director at the time. We are simply removing the word additional, and so staff recommends forwarding that recommendation onto the City Council to make that correction.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
Oops, wrong one. I move to recommend to the City Council the draft proposal for amendments to MMC Chapter 18.16.320.c.1, Table 1, wetland buffers as identified in Attachment 1.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to recommend to City Council the draft proposal for amendments to the Milton Municipal Code, Chapter 18.16.320.c.1, Table 1, wetland buffers as identified in Attachment 1. Any discussion? All right, with that, we'll go ahead and put it to vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Who was the second?
I was.
Dana.
Thank you.
Commissioner Euler? All those opposed? Your hand's up, is that a?
Oh, no.
Okay. Just double
It's a
checking.
salute to you, man.
All right, motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, that moves us into regular agenda item 7B, which is a framework presentation. We have handouts for our members here, as we do not have our,
So we have the projector, we just don't have the power cord for the projector. So I will talk to my delivery service next time.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we have hard copies for everybody.
okay, perfect.
We can share.
And do you need a,
I think it's the same thing that on
Yeah.
my computer we have.
Yeah.
Does anybody need, would you like to follow along?
She's got-
You've got
okay, perfect. That was going to be my next, was just making sure you had a hard copy to
So
follow along.
large.
All right, great. Well, then I will turn the floor over to you guys. Thank
Okay.
you.
Greg, good evening. Jeff Arango with Framework and joined by Sarah Lukens, who will give the bulk of the presentation. We're excited to be back with you. We have a preview of the land use and housing elements that we want to go through with you this evening. Very similar package of materials we went through with the city council at the end of last year, so we've gotten some input from them. And then in terms of next steps, we'll be rolling out the first drafts of those elements here shortly. We've been working with Anjali on coordinating the schedule. And before we do put those drafts out, we wanted to be able to present a lot of the content to you this evening and get your feedback and incorporate any comments before we move forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah to go through the content.
Perfect angle. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Great. So going directly to page 1, we'll just briefly review the community vision, which is informing some of our goals and policies as we move forward. Then we'll look at the policy framework, future land use map, land use goals and policies overview, and then finally the housing goals and policies overview. So the first page is just the community vision again, which I believe all of you have seen several times. And apologies that the formatting is a little bit funky on this, but will be updated in the final plan. And on, let's see, page 2, again, we're showing the crosswalking of all of the community visions with each of the different comprehensive plan elements to show how they're showing up within the plan. Okay, so the first thing I'll talk about is the comp plan summary of goals and policy review. We've gone through a pretty extensive review process and starting to really refine the goals and policies from the previous plan and add additional new goals and policies based on both the Milton vision as it's been articulated by the community and then edited and reviewed, and then also from the mandates that we're getting from the state, PSRC, and then finally King and Pierce counties. So we did a very extensive review process to make sure that all those gaps were filled within the goals and policies that we are proposing. So if you go to page 6, you'll see some of the themes from each of those different governing bodies. For the Washington Growth Management Act, some of the key themes that we're having trickled down into the land use and housing elements and the other elements are the importance of increasing middle housing, increasing affordable housing, equity and inclusion. PSRC is really focused on transit-oriented development, job-oriented growth, and addressing climate change. And the counties are also working on increasing equity and addressing disparate impact. So those are some of the things that you'll see as you review the goals and policies once they're out in draft form. Okay, I wanted to go over our hopefully final-ish version of the future land use map, which has been refined again based on all of your comments. And again, thank you all so much for all of your comments in Convio. That was extremely helpful for for us to refine the future land use map. So the first page is what we're proposing for the future land use map, all laid out. As you can see on the right, there's a little bit of a diagram showing an axon with several little community centers, which is sort of the basis for some of our planning decisions. It's in order to create these little community hubs that can really be vibrant places within the city of Milton. Okay, I'm on to page 9. Is everyone roughly there and I can slow down? Okay, great. So the first one, our first land use designation that we're looking at, and again, this is just the new designation overlaid over the existing land use map. So most of the quarry site is getting devoted to light industrial, and then we're pushing back we're pulling back the boundaries of some of the other manufacturing areas in the city. The next one is the 99 Business District, which would be a proposal to retain that area sort of similarly to the existing business zoning. And I'm almost tall enough for this lecture. I'm sorry. And then, so on to page 11 is the boundaries for the Uptown Mixed Use Zone. So that is where we're anticipating the bulk of our affordable housing would be in that area. And so as you can see, it's extending a little bit further into the existing manufacturing. Page 12 is Town Center, which we've reduced in size a little bit per your feedback, so that it can be a more intensive commercial area that's supported by some slightly denser housing. Page 13 are these neighborhood center commercial areas that would be a little bit of a lower intensity from the existing business. And then on page 14, we're getting into our residential. And I think the only really big change here is 2 parcels that are just to the east of the school property.
Do you want me to
If you'd be willing to
expand on
discuss, that'd
that?
be great, yeah.
So the city's been approached by potential developers for the 2 parcels that are between the blue of the school and that connect over to the rest of the urban residential. A good portion of the 1 parcel is wetlands and it would be protected as such, but they're looking at, basically they're wanting to do more of similar townhouse idea, similar to what was done behind the post office. Because it connects to, the parcels connect to the urban residential, because they'll be protecting wetlands. So by allowing them to sort of do townhouses, they get more value for it, which means they're more apt, then it sort of is a bonus for them protecting it. It's next to the school, next to Meridian, next to Milton Way. It seemed like that was a reasonable option for them. We've had people ask other parcels that are up in the heart of single family, and we have said, no, that doesn't make any sense. This one has some, does make some, definitely makes some sense. I think there's some real positiveness to it. And so we wanted to bring it up today and see if that is something we're comfortable with continuing to move forward on. And if you want more information, we can bring that back in February.
Discussion on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Boyle?
Sorry, there's a piece of property that seems boxed out between the school and the proposed urban residential zone along Milton Way that also has wetlands setbacks. And I was wondering why they would not be given the option for the urban residential in that property as well, and just box it all.
So those are currently developed with single family. And so I think the idea was that those wouldn't change because that's what they are. And they, where the other, we were approached. And so there are little pieces throughout here that we've adjusted as we've talked to different property owners. And so that's why that one, I said, you know, because we were doing the full update, it made sense to include it as part of what we were doing if the planning commission felt comfortable with that.
And so what would happen if that developer or potential developer of the potential urban residential zone there was to buy that property? Is it a difficult process to change that? Or?
So if let's say in the future, somebody wanted to buy that little section and develop it, there, again, because it's a two-step process. And so once a year, we can change the comp plan. So they would again apply to change the comp plan and the zoning. It would, on a non-update year, that might be our only item we're looking at, but it would come to the planning commission. The planning commission would review it, and if they agreed with anything else we were changing in the comp plan, it would go then to council. So it'd be a similar process. It would just be that one item. And then they would also have to, at the same time, we would review the zoning. So if there's certain areas. Now, in this, again, part of the reason why this is possible is because it does connect to existing. Now, up off of, I think it's, is it Emerald and something where they're next to the high tank or the park? 19th. I've had people ask if they could turn that into higher density. And the answer is no, there's nothing else there. So you would just be this island of high density. And so in that case, I've always told them, no, that doesn't make sense. But in this case, it does sort of connect between a school, which can have a little more intensity, and you're connecting to an existing multifamily zone. So that's why this one made, to me, worth discussing.
So the city was approached by a developer to change the zoning, but the city's not obligated to check with the existing homeowner that's going to be surrounded by urban residential to see if they want the option.
So we are, as we get, if we're feeling like this map is pretty much pretty close to what we think we want, the city is going to send out notices to surround, and I haven't picked the exact distance, but in essence, and sometimes it's not as much distance as who's actually being affected, but we are planning on sending out notices to properties that are either proposed to change or close to proposed to change to say, this is what the city is proposing. Our feeling was that it would make more sense at this point to have them have the offer that they can talk to staff directly. Because people have a harder time doing mass meetings. A lot of times people work or it's different schedules. So start with the idea that they can talk to staff directly to understand what those proposals are. And then also let them know that there are meetings that will be with the planning commission at the city council if they have concerns or not. So our intent is to start notifying, again, both the properties that are proposed to change as well as those within a certain radius so that they're aware of what we're doing.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I'm really trying to get a view on this because when you go from Meridian onto 23rd, turning on 23rd towards Taylor, you have the skate park, then you have a house, and you have the driveway into the closed community. And then next to that is another house, and then the place where they're building homes, but it's been stopped for so long. I'm trying to figure out actually where the open property is that we can change. And when we look at Meridian, am I talking too loud? Is it okay?
No, you're good.
When I look at Meridian, and I see that little bottom of the L going to the left, I go, okay, the school's a hill. There's a driveway that goes in from there to go to the office building for the school. The house on the corner, the house at the top of the hill is private property. So I didn't see any property coming in off of Meridian but a driveway.
Milton.
That's all that's there. So was the vision that that would be a driveway into whatever townhomes or design they were wanting on that acreage that would go from that, which is a no-name street, to 23rd? And again, I'm trying to see the depth of it, the width of it, because there's homes already going in there.
So the majority of that parcel, so on the 23rd side is all wetlands. So there wouldn't be able to develop on that half, on the west half of the little portion. The majority of the development would occur on the west side if they were able to go through all of it.
Okay, but
And there's a
there's
block
still,
wall.
but there's still that one property that they're building. They have the road, they're trying to build the road on 23rd back that looks like it's a circle, and they're going to build homes back there.
Yeah, that's,
That's there. Okay, okay. All right, so then it would be right next door
here.
to Nevada Court.
it's right, it's one of these down here.
Okay.
That's the new one.
Okay,
So basically it would be up here,
okay.
and these are all wetlands.
Would we have to put a new road sign? That would have to be a road.
They would have to,
The house with the
We
orchard.
can hear you.
that's good, yeah, I mean, when it got, if they got to that point, they would have to figure out what their entrances are, they would have to provide engineering, they would have to go through all of our normal, but it would be coming off of Milton Way,
Right.
not 23rd.
Right, but isn't that school property? The
There is
road?
an access to the school property, they would have to either coordinate with the school or have their own access, but that would be something for,
Okay, the other question I have, is it a developer who has already developed within the city?
They're asking to rezone it to the multifamily.
I don't know that, I don't know. A lot of times we get consultants that have worked on different projects, so it's not, I don't know that it specifically is. So really, I know it's hard not to think about it from a project perspective, but at some level, you have to look at it as, even if this fell through, are we comfortable with that for those properties?
The question I have too is how did they come to us to say, ooh, you all are changing the zoning?
Well, they came to us saying, hey, this is what we like to do, and I said the zoning doesn't allow it.
Okay.
I did inform them that this would, on a normal year, they would request it and it would go through the process. Since we already sort of have this whole package and you can only do the comp plan once a year, in essence, it makes sense to, either way, we'd have to roll it into what we were already doing.
And I see we're going to be faced with this problem a lot as the state is mandating and forcing us to expand our single family and other areas. So I think it's important that we locate areas that are more feasible and less invasive into the single family area.
Aren't there condos across the street already?
Huh?
Are there condos across the street already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say there's, I think, townhomes there.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and I apologize. I was looking this way.
So we'll make a note that urban residential will be a new zoning designation in Milton. It's not on any of these lists.
It's,
This is all brand new.
all of the labels are kind of being updated. It will be close to our current multifamily, or, residential multifamily.
So, but the definition of it's over on the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
side.
But it's not in our code anywhere. It's not,
No, and
This-
none of, all of these are sort of going to be updated names that will change through the code. So yes, in essence, our urban residential is close to our current multifamily. Our neighborhood center is, again, all of these are going to be new terms that we will have to get used to.
All right, Commissioner Oler, or Vice Chair
So just
Oler?
point of clarification, the existing zoning BCF, M1, MX, OS, PD, RM, RMD, and RS, that's existing, that's the color, but that's going away, and it's being replaced by the hash.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So
go
the
ahead.
future land use map is not a zoning map. So one of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the idea, one of the things that we're trying to do is in the future land use map, give slightly broader definitions of all of these zoning types. So you'll see that there's like 18 to 30 dwelling units that allows you more flexibility in your actual zoning. So it could be retained as the existing zoning, depending on like whether it can kind of fall within that broader umbrella.
Yes, Commissioner Boyle.
Anyone else notice that this contradicts with what our citizens' vision was? I don't see anywhere in the vision from these 12 points where it says that they would rather have more condensed housing. I don't see that. I see multi-generational housing options is about all I can see, that people can stay in Milton as their housing needs may change. That tells me if someone's going to move but stay within the city. But I don't see anything that says that they would rather have more cramped housing. I don't see that anywhere in our community vision that was surveyed by the citizens.
So it's a blend of both what the vision is, as well as the needs of the community, as well as state mandates. So it's a blend of all of that. And depending on what, in most cases, higher density leads to lower cost, which would allow certain people to stay in that maybe they wouldn't have, or maybe their children can have homes where they can't. So it's a blend of all of that.
I don't see that
I
it's
agree.
totally incompatible.
Once again, I don't see that in the community vision. And so
Okay.
basically what we're saying is the state is mandating our vision and they are mandating our comprehensive plan. Go along with it. Don't complain about it through this whole process is what I'm being told.
Let's pause for a second. Commissioner Johnson's had her hand
Okay.
up for a bit.
Your feeling is exactly true, but it is a feeling, and we don't know how many citizens actually were involved with the vision plan. There's over 8,000 people in Milton, and unfortunately, Washington State is mandating through their state, through the state to the Puget Sound area to Pierce, and we are inundated with new laws coming in next year, if they pass, that's going to have a tremendous impact on us as a small city. And I want to build a moat with alligators, but the reality is, we as the people don't have the voice with the state. And that's the reality. Now, what we have to do is try to manage what they are mandating so it has less of an impact, because we want to keep single family, but the state's not going to allow that. It will be removed.
Yes, Commissioner Elmstead.
I don't actually see how it doesn't agree with that in that vision.
Oh, microphone, please.
With point 1 and point 2, it's talking about supporting growth in the
Yeah.
missing middle housing, low-rise density, as well as number 2, to complete the neighboring neighborhoods to provide variety of housing types. It directly correlates to that. While there are some contradictions, it has to
Yeah.
happen.
And then, if I may, so the urban residential is a density of 18 to 30. We also have like neighborhood residential, which is a density of 12 to 18 dwelling units. Or we have 0 to 10, which is, I think, our minimum. I'm hearing that maybe it sounds like 18 to 30 feels a little too dense for this area. I don't know what this proposed developer is, but is the feeling that you're stating, Commissioner Boyle, that 18 to 30 and that range is getting too close? Or is there in any way that 18 to 30 in that span feels like it's opposing what
Chair,
the city looks for?
all we
Yeah.
have to do is look at the place behind the post office. That's high. That, to me, is too much in one area.
Yeah.
But again, you're looking for areas where you could put, I mean, we have apartment complexes. That's what this zone is for. It's for apartment complexes, it's for townhouses. And again, what Sarah was trying to explain is that this is the high level. We can have subzones underneath that when we get to the zoning part. So, I mean, we currently have a multifamily zone. The intent is to keep that. Now, when we get to the neighborhood, again, it's saying that there's a range of densities, but when we get to the zoning, which will come later, you know, we could have two different areas, like we do now. We have the medium density, which allows smaller lots, and we have our residential. So within those two zones can be within the neighborhood residential, one allowing higher density a little bit, one during lower. So this is broad categories. Jeff, it looked like you wanted to.
Well, yeah, this is a good discussion, just clarify a few things. So as Sarah was saying, the purpose of the kind of reformatting and the new categories for the future land use map is to give us some flexibility. As we get to the code part of the project, we will then have some ability to be able to share some more information. You know, what does 20 units an acre look like? You know, here's an example, or here's a little graphic of what that might look like on a real site. And then we will have some flexibility to calibrate that. So the purpose of the future land use map and the way it's been structured is so that every time you want to make a zoning change, you don't have to go and update the comp plan. So it's a more of a flexible tool. I would also say that, you know, certainly appreciate the frustration of the planning mandates. But if I go back to some of the public engagement that we heard, you know, there's definitely interest in people seeing more housing options in Milton. I talked to one lady at the Milton Days who had been displaced from the community because she couldn't find housing, had lived here for 30 years. So these issues are real. And as Anjali said, moving beyond just single-family homes is a key strategy. It is, in some cases, mandated by the state, and we'll get into the middle housing requirements, but there's also affordable housing requirements that we need to plan for. And, you know, generally, I think a lot of those are in alignment with what we've heard in the community, and, you know, folks wanting maybe their kids to be able to own or rent a home in the community, or being able to stay in the community. I think those are real issues that, you know, people are facing, and part of what we're trying to plan for. Sorry, with that said, the parcel in question about the high density residential, just to be clear, there's no state mandate to rezone that. So that's a local decision. Sorry. Yes, sir.
So first of all, I'll say that I think this, if we were to do a zoning change to this area, it's a good area. It's near school. It's right off the main road. Transit comes right through there. Absolutely. But what I want to know is if we're saying, who is saying that we do not have enough affordable housing in Milton? Where is the documentation? Where is the stats? I don't see anything that says we are behind. And at least in this document.
Share that with you. We have a prescriptive number of housing units that we need to plan for.
So the state makes these numbers that we have to meet and change our zoning to meet some hypothetical that some neighbor says, well, I'd like to see more housing closer together, or my daughter can't afford a house to live here, or whatever. Where is this documentation? Where are these stats that say we have to meet this threshold?
Yeah, we could share that with you. I mean, it's actually part of our presentation. We could show you, but there's specific numbers and specific categories that we need to plan for. It does start with the state, but eventually it goes to the counties, and the counties take their allotment and figure out who has to provide what. And in some cases, you know, we're working with some communities that have hardly no affordable housing, so their targets are largely about affordable housing. In Milton's case, I think the numbers and the amounts of affordable housing are pretty modest. If you look at it, it's a few hundred units. So it's not, you know, a massive amount of new housing that's being required to be planned for. But yes, there is that requirement, and we do have to demonstrate it. There was also some housing work that another organization did on behalf of the city that does explain the current conditions for housing and the housing supply. So there is that data out there. If you'd like to review it, we can make it
And if I
available.
recall the data from a few months ago, I think it was that we needed like 3 or 5.
255, I think, at least for middle to low income housing.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say it was like 250. It was under 300 affordable homes over the next 5 to 10 years. It wasn't
20 years.
20 years. Okay, yeah. I mean,
So
it
what I'm trying to
was pretty
avoid
minimal.
is the
It's one-
situation they have in Edgewood right now, where they have so much apartments and condominiums crammed together down the same corridor. They've basically eliminated their retail down Meridian with all these. So what happens is these landowners, they get the LID, they're gonna pay that, they're gonna pay all this, and they're gonna develop housing because that's the way they make the first buck, the most money. They don't care about affordable housing. They don't care, all they care about is the dollar signs, these developers. And so what I'm trying to avoid is something like that, something like this urban residential triggering something like that that's vast in Milton. So I'm just being, as a lack of
So-
another word, ultra-conservative
Sure.
and watching our backs.
I appreciate that. And I think, you know, where we can really help is with the standards for how that development happens. You know, the city has
And
control
I
to set
guess-
the parameters and rules, and we can update those.
Discussing Edgewood, that's a choice Edgewood made. Edgewood made a choice to have commercial, residential in that corridor to protect the very large lots, single-family residential that's in the rest of the city. They could have said everyone has to have $5,000, $6,000, 5 and 6,000 square foot lots, and they would have spread it out. They made a choice to say we want to protect that because that's those we don't want to make those properties have to shrink. So instead, we're going to take our housing numbers and we're going to go up along these corridors. That was a choice they made. We don't have to make that same choice, but you have to. But there are toss-ups. If you're not going to go up, then you have to divide properties. So there's balances there.
So what they did wrong is they went with the whole town center, commercial below, apartments above, after they allowed all the density on Meridian.
Again, we get to choose within parameters what Milton wants to do.
All right, I don't want to get off track.
Yeah.
Don't want to get too distracted with Edgewood, but I just keep it in the back of my mind.
All right. I'm going to go one more round of comments and then make sure that they're allowed to continue their presentation. So we'll start with Commissioner Whalen.
So I really hear what people are saying. There's a lot to say. This mic is way too loud among that. I think, and I appreciate the presentation, and before I drill into weeds, please be starting to think about when we could meet, because there is so much missing information. There is this is a communication tool, and so I will say at a high level, I look at the color palette and I question it. I look at the graphics, I question it. It's a communication tool, it should be clear and crisp. So first off, if you're having a crisp understanding of what a future land use map is that a wish list, or when the comp plan is adopted, that's the new zoning? That needs to be clarified. If you're going to do overlays, and I appreciate and it's tough. I mean, I'm a graphic geek. I mean, I love it. So I really understand how you think you got it all figured out and then, oh, I can't make this work. So I'll just stay at that high level and say these maps could have been done to be far more effective in conveying a message that says, here's the part of Milton we're going to change. And I'll leave it at that and ask you for a time to meet with you later. On the topic of the new zoning designations, these maps need to make it really crystal clear. We're talking about a future wish list, as I understand the future land use map purpose. This is where we're going. This is what we're working to. How we get there gets drilled in. Right. So, you know, I look at the neighborhood zoning. I think there's a merit to the idea. The concern I have is the fact that the future land use designation for the school, where there's that little chunk out of it, when you look at the, please tell me what page we're on. I flipped so many pages here.
14.
Thank you, thank you. So page 14, there's that chunk taken out that's now got the overlay distinction done, that was supposed to be reserved for community facilities. That was the future land use map. So I think the school is really someone to have a conversation with, because this is a significant change. Maybe they don't have that kind of interest. So that's a for-your reference kind
Can
of
I
thing.
Just clarify one thing.
Yeah.
The hatching is not an overlay, it's just showing the full area that would be subject to that zone.
Thank you, yes. So on that topic, heavy rains show you where the low spots in the wetlands are. I can appreciate that we've got a merging of goals. The big issue for me is make it nice. I have I've lived in various places, garden apartments. They were nice. They weren't crammed concrete stuff. So I'm really hoping with the standards that we get to that sense of, oh, no, it's not all concrete. Oh, no, there are trees, it's like, make it nice. Because as I acquire wisdom, age is, something to the youth, but, aging is an art. And as you go forward, yes, your needs change, your interests, what you want to do, what you can't. So I am supportive of addressing middle housing. It's how it's implemented. And the history for new planning commissioners is the idea that the county comes in, does a buildable lands analysis and concurrency. One wrong word, and it's a big problem. So the county came in, we had a future land use discussion in our prior comp plan in the early 2000s that said, in the single family zone, the idea is we'll get to like 6 dwelling units per acre. The county came in and said, hey, your plan says 6 dwelling units per acre. But when we do our analysis, which was really scant at the time because building was not as accelerated, it's like, you're not meeting this goal. And they were like blocked. And it's like, no, sorry, you got to make a change. So I really feel your pain about someone coming in and saying, we don't care how you interpret it, because our code does not require a minimum density. Our code, as you know, if I have 12 acres and I want to cut it in half, I can do it in our code. But at any rate, the county was coming in and saying, based on our analysis, you are not meeting your goals. So the concern for me in saying future land use map, and later on you have that schematic of the collection of information about the various districts. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a high number for urban neighborhood. It doesn't even allow for something less than, or if I could find it, it's that roller coaster page, as I call it. It's like, wait a minute. And so that's my historic experience in how sensitive this issue is for people, what's going on in the neighborhood, is the message clearly conveyed, and the need to really figure out, when you make the presentation of what standards could be, how can you make it livable? Next thing, Edgewood, they did the density because that's where the sewer went in. Edgewood doesn't have sewer. It's got a land topography that doesn't support high density. So there's a lot of things that came into play. There's more controversy behind it. But I want to make this a place where we can age in place, but make it nice, not where people are warehoused. That's just, I can't say it enough on that. And the other thing in the maps, I'll talk with you about suggestions on how to make it more clear. Don't want to take too far away from it. I applaud the effort. It's challenging, but these things are nowhere near a clear, crisp, concise communication tool. That's what I was anticipating. That's what I was hoping for. And my angst is, we got to be done by Memorial Day. It's got to go to council. We have a grant deadline. It's really, wow, there's a lot to do. So that's my urgency. And that's all I'll say for the moment, except to say, we need to have more input with you. We need that opportunity. And I appreciate this option, but you can see there's a lot of pent-up information from just, and I'm Mr. Talker, but you have a lot of people here who are like, hey.
Yeah.
So that's another piece of this puzzle as you're thinking ahead about future schedule, is this means a lot. And when information is unclear or omitted or difficult to understand, it fuels people's concerns.
I think the part that I'm struggling with a little bit is a lot of the maps and information we presented are directly from input from the commission.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite clear about what's not clear. That's a map that's going to go in the grant.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. You're telling me what's new and what's old, you overlay it on the current, you tell me the future, and you show colors, low contrast, washed out. It's hard to distinguish when there needs to be and I can show you examples.
Pardon me for interrupting.
Yeah.
Can we finish the presentation and then discuss, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to just make a quick clarification point. So page 8 does kind of have a good summary of like what they see is the future map. And then from that, you're breaking it down into, okay, now this page, we're hatching this and we're talking about this zone. Then we're going to hatch and talk about this. I apologize that we probably did a disservice as far as not having the power cord, and maybe that would have helped things. And, or if you guys had a backup or something like that. So that there is some,
Chair,
misgivings here.
I would
Yes,
just like
Commissioner
to say,
Johnson.
I see nothing different than were presented in any comp plan in the
Yeah.
past. There's nothing wrong. I don't see it in 3D, that's fine.
Yeah. But,
But there is nothing inappropriate or unprofessional done in this presentation. I prefer this paper than up there because of my vision, and I can see it clearly. And the design is the same as it was in the previous comp plan.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so we can talk offline about maybe ways to adapt the presentations to our group a little bit more of having a little bit of a recap prior to the presentation stuff.
Thank you.
Or saying, here's the old documents or something of that nature. With that, I know we said we were going to do one more round of just kind of
We're halfway
anything
through.
because I
We're
just
good.
want to make sure we give them time
Yep.
to continue their presentation. So with that, I think we were left off on page 14.
That sounds
Okay.
right.
Perfect.
Urban residential.
All right. And then again, for anyone that wants to be able to go back and forth, there is page 8, which just shows the future map as far as if you were to kind of piece all of the zones together, this is what they are envisioning the future zoning to look like. And then they're just further defined on the later pages. Yes, Commissioner Whalen.
I'll be brief. I have a question as to the question that was put before us by staff was, do you think this is the right place to make this kind of a change? And I don't know if staff's gotten enough of an answer, number one. Number two, I brought up the point of future land use designation that was to be reserved for the school. And so I don't know, I don't have a sense of resolution, and I in no means at all, I don't know if anyone thought I was saying unprofessional. I was not. So could we get clarity on that before we move on?
May we please table the rest of this discussion until we're done with this presentation? I'm begging
asked
now.
for comments.
I'm begging now. Can we
Point
table
of
it?
order, we were asked to make comments, and we made comments.
I'm
I don't think
requesting,
we're done.
I'm requesting that we make your comments and we can discuss them after we're done with the presentation, please.
So we've made our last round of comments. We're going to go ahead and, if staff would like to address those comments that were made, we'll allow staff to make comments. And then we're going to move on with the presentation because we do want to be considerate of their time. So why don't we, from page 14 going forward, we'll kind of let you guys continue your presentation. We'll write down our notes and we'll have further discussion towards the end of this, if that works for everyone as far as
And-
formatting goes.
If there are errors on the map too, or anything, of course, we want to hear if there's something that is inconsistent that got missed. Anyway, so if you go on to page 15, going into neighborhood residential, you'll see that it's we're retaining almost all of the existing neighborhood residential that exists, which is functionally the RM and RS, RMD and RS zones. And then there are some new park properties that are coming in. So those are some of the areas that are not hatched. And then on page 16, you'll see these new park properties, which are reflected in, again, the future land use map on page 8. On page 17 are community facilities, which include the school. It looks like there may be one that I missed that is the blue property, just to the east of Hill Tower Park, but that'll be added back in. And then on page 18, we're getting into we're suggesting some sub-area planning districts, including Town Center, the Highway 99 Business Corridor, and then the Uptown Zone, so that, again, there can be a real planning process to make these important parts of your city reflect what you want them to look like. Okay, so getting into the elements, unless we want to pause for, keep going. Okay. So getting into the land use element, we have draft versions that are being refined of both the land use and housing elements. If you'll, sorry. Okay, sorry. So some key takeaways that we have here are that, again, through this sort of moving both from the community vision and the other governing bodies that we're working under, some key points are the importance of equitable access to opportunities, income levels, prioritizing methods to boost physical activity, which is also reflected in the existing plan, efficient land use, so the importance of safeguarding the environment and ensuring all of these environmental amenities while still balancing housing and employment needs. And then optimizing growth in high volume infrastructure zones. And finally, addressing racially disparate impact, which is one of the really important key planning policy goals, particularly of King County. So here is the roller coaster diagram that Jacqueline was referring to. And so again, I think just to highlight that these numbers can be adjusted to better reflect some of what we've heard tonight, while still ensuring that they respond to some of the new legislation that's requiring different density types.
I'll just make
Yeah.
one additional quick comment, that the numbers you show are shown here in some cases are maximum densities. It doesn't necessarily mean we've decided to put in minimums. So that's something we can consider if we would like to do, but not something that we've baked in. And then just to be clear, the neighborhood residential zone, that's the zone where we're required to implement the middle housing bill. So that's really the driver of that change.
Great. And so here we're getting on page 22 into proposals for the goals for the land use element. And most of them are taken from the existing plan and edited for clarity. And in some cases, they are filling gaps that, again, are coming from other legislative bodies.
Question,
Yeah.
do we have to put the climate one in this comp plan?
We're going to hold questions to the
I'm sorry?
end. If you could just write down. I just want to make,
I-
I said we're going to hold questions.
Oh.
So if you want to just,
that-
okay.
'cause that was in there, okay.
Great. And you'll see on the right, and this will be clearer in the plan document, but we're also crosswalking all of these goals with the community vision. So as you can see, we've got a lot of bars here showing how they are fulfilling community vision goals. So those are both on page 22 and 23 for you to review. Just to jump quickly into the housing element, again, we're looking at equitable access, supporting missing middle housing, enabling people to live for their whole lives in Milton, and creating quality housing. So on page 26 are the numbers that we were talking about earlier, referring to what Pierce County and King County are the growth allocations that they've given to the city, which we need to plan for in the next 20 years. So the Pierce County allocation includes 43 permanent supportive housing and 32 non-permanent supportive housing units, and then 45 apartments. So still a fairly, and you'll see at the bottom of that page, actually, that compared to the existing amount of housing, it's really a fairly small additional allocation that we need to accommodate. And then the map on the right is just to show the general locations where we would see these different housing typologies. Page 27 is, again, that rough density by area, which, again, does not indicate the minimum dwelling units per acre, but it's more of a target. And then getting into the housing goals and the community vision, a lot of, again, a lot of these, because we've gotten so many state mandates, some of these goals are coming more from the state. But many of them are retained from the existing comprehensive plan. And again, you'll see the vision crosswalked on the other side. Cool.
All right, so we will open it up for, or were you going to say something first?
Well, I was just going to answer
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson's question. So the city is required to do the climate element, and you will be getting a grant for it. You do have until 2029 to complete that work, which you don't really probably need that amount of time, but that is how that works. Because the law was passed while these communities were mid-cycle, they gave till 2029 when the first progress report is due, and then like the 2025 and 6 communities have to do it, I think, with their plans. So that's how that works.
I've got a couple of questions. So looking at page 26, knowing that there's goals by King County and Pierce County, and then seeing kind of how things fall on the map, are we okay as far as how we don't have as much dense areas on the King County side than the Pierce? Is that going to create a problem within our comp plan that we're not on the King County side, or, okay?
Yeah, actually, I think we're actually, looking pretty good. And I think obviously
Okay.
the land use, future land use map has been calibrated to the requirements and making sure, because we do have to document that to PSRC. And, you know, as part of that process, if we feel like some of the assumptions to Commissioner Whalen's comment earlier, you know, we can change those assumptions and make the case. So if we think they're assuming a density of 4 in a neighborhood that we think is actually 6, then we can make that case. And we've been doing that for a number of our clients as we've been coordinating directly with PSRC. So, you know, we're the city's kind of advocates in that respect. But yeah, no, the city shouldn't have any issues with compliance based on the direction of the plan currently.
Okay. One thing that I remember coming up as fairly important was protecting our manufactured and mobile home parks. Like there's the senior one. Oh, I'm specking on thing. But there's also one under 99 that it seems like under the future land use map might be falling into the 99 business district.
Okay, yeah.
Is that, have you guys kind of double checked that one? And is that on the yellow side or the red side? I just,
Yeah, it's right in there. But,
it's, okay.
There are 2 manufacturing home parks in that area. Both are currently in the business district, so
they're already, yeah.
they're both non-conforming, so.
Okay. Well, in an effort to not displace low-income housing, because that is one of the few affordable areas, or,
Yeah, I mean, we could do like an overlay potentially.
Okay.
And this could be something that could looked at both in the code and in the future separate plan.
Okay.
So- Because it's hard to like create a new category just for a specific parcel, but an overlay might work. So let us. take a
yeah,
look
it
at
just
that
looks
if
like
you-
we've got that line close enough there where if we can,
Oh, to bring it up. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
look at that too. Sure.
or
okay.
if it makes
No,
more
that makes
sense
a
to
lot of
throw it
sense.
as an orange or something. It's just that if we already have existing
Makes total sense.
affordability issues, I don't want to create an issue where affordable housing is non-conforming.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. And then another thing that would have been nice that for future maps is if we have a better idea of where the link light rail is going to be and just kind of having that hatched out as an
Yeah.
arterial, kind of similar to I-5. I know it's, last I heard, it hasn't been totally landed yet, but if we can just kind of have that in a color, just so that as we're visualizing things, we kind of have that in mind. And that we're also not setting up businesses or homes to be knocked out, right? So, okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I got some.
Yes, Commissioner Boyle.
So, obviously, I'm not the smartest person in this room. We all know that. I'm having extreme difficulty understanding some of these pages, specifically, page 21.
Okay.
Which is the
Yeah.
roller coaster page.
Yeah.
What does this represent? I'm trying to follow these colors, and so the colors represent the colors on the zoning map.
The colors represent the colors on the future land use,
On the what?
on the future land use map on page 8.
Yeah, yeah.
So 8
Yeah.
and 21 are
Yeah,
friends.
so 8 and 21 are the same, and so the idea of this map is to show, or it's kind of a section, basically, is to show what are some of the relationships between different types of land use designations, what are we putting next to each other, and then what are the land use intensities of each of those different designations, basically. So like our uptown mixed use is our highest intensity land use, and our neighborhood residential is our lowest, along with our green space.
Yeah.
But it's really to indicate too, like our manufacturing district, that's going just next to business. It's not going to be, it's going to be on the I-5 corridor. So
Right.
we're trying to eliminate sort of
Yep.
land uses that don't work well together.
Gotcha. All right, now I'm getting it. So the same would go with page 22 and page 23.
Yeah, so
I don't,
we'll have a better key for this in the actual document. So you're missing some information on the right side, which each of those numbers corresponds to a vision statement, which is at the
On the
beginning of
first
the
page.
document.
Yeah.
okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
so that's
That's what I
the
thought.
mystery that you're,
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say I appreciate these larger copies because the one we got in here is
It's too
ineligible.
small.
yet. Yeah, so
It
I,
was just rotated weird too. I'm not sure
Yeah.
why. If it would
And
have
when-
rotated the other way, it would have.
When you get the
I
printed
don't know.
document, we will do some analysis, make sure that the contrast is enough. We may modify, we just have been doing this for another client, so we will fine tune that, not to dismiss, just want to be clear, we're not dismissing all your feedback. And so when you get it back in the printed document, some of that will be definitely fine tuned.
I had one other question that I didn't understand. It had to do with, shoot, I'm trying to figure out what page it would be on, the page 26. And it's with us taking the step of creating this urban residential zone or whatever it is. If we did not have that, are you saying that we would not meet with our trends since our last comp plan, that we will not meet the middle housing goals of the state?
That one is actually not middle housing. That really gets into the affordable housing. And the issue there is that the state has given guidance that certain types of housing are associated with certain income levels, right? So if you're providing affordable housing for someone making 0 to 30%, that's not going to be in a single family home. So you have to show if that's going to be in an apartment building, that you have enough spots in apartment buildings or units that could be within apartment buildings that could be developed in the city. So that urban residential is one piece of the equation. The other piece is the uptown, where we're introducing allowances for housing. I don't know the specific numbers of if you could get rid of the high residential and still meet the mandates, but that's something we could look at. But just generally, the requirement is you have to show, for example, 0 to 50, if you total those up, it's like, let's say 100-ish. You just have to show that you could build 100 apartments somewhere in the
So
city.
you're creating the availability, not going by the trends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a real frustration, for us, just to be totally honest. Not so much in the planning for affordable housing, but because the assumptions are pretty off of what we actually think will happen. That's the challenge. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we might work with the community and plan, all of their growth is going to be affordable housing. Well, that's, clearly
Yeah,
not going
yeah,
to happen. So that is our challenge. I mean, not to say that we don't have our own bones to pick with the process. We do, but I think we've learned a lot and we are pretty good at using that knowledge to the advantage of our cities and to get good outcomes for everyone. Because there are challenges when the counties go and do these broad brush kind of looks at cities. I don't think they maybe fully understand all of the nuances, and that's our job, is to bring that forward. So where we are able to identify those, I think, we can help you sort those out. So that is, it really is a simple exercise, which is, some affordable housing developer or a for-profit developer doing a component of affordable housing could come in and develop in this location.
Now, the
PSH?
needs, though, the
What's that?
needs follow the trends.
Yeah,
But
right.
whether or not people will build it
Yeah,
in a certain community is a bigger challenge, but we will have to, in a few years, demonstrate that we are doing things, so we may have to do more incentives if we don't get that. But the need is the trends.
right.
But isn't part of our responsibility as planning commissioners is to protect the rights of the property owners? So they're not getting pushed around.
I mean, not to be rude, but what's PSH? Well,
I
we're
have the
talking about
floor.
26.
I have the floor, I believe.
Sorry.
So are we not trying to protect the rights of the property owners and the adjacent property owners with
Well,
all
there's-
of a sudden changing the zoning is my
But
concern.
you could flip it the other way. I mean, why would we restrict property owners in what they can build on their property? I mean, isn't that kind of basically, if you own a single-family property and that's all you can build, that means everything else has been determined illegal. Isn't that more of an infringement on property rights than than the other scenario?
But we're talking about larger properties here,
Yeah,
mostly larger properties.
yeah.
And, to change the zoning, yeah, you have to go through the process, right? Do we not have to go through the process?
Yeah,
But-
but I think it's predicated on giving property owners more flexibility to choose what they want to do with the property that they own. I mean, it's really, you could look at this as actually property rights, expanding property rights. And, not to dismiss, your point, I think it's well taken, but, some cities have opened up their zoning on that basis. City of Pasco, one of our clients, kind of more of a conservative community. They opened up their zoning because they felt it was a property rights issue.
Perfect.
Why should a duplex be illegal? It's like, if it's my property, why can't I
Yeah.
build it? You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
think there's
goes
another
both
side of
ways.
it to go
Goes
both ways. And
absolutely.
then it comes back to the standards and the rules to make sure it's, it's done well. And that's really important to us. We're urban designers. That's core to our work. We just haven't gotten quite there yet with Milton, but that's going to be one of our next steps. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
PSH.
Yeah, I just had a clarifying question on that thing we were discussing on 26. What's PSH?
permanent supportive housing. So there's wraparound services associated with it.
Great. That helps me understand what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Permanent support.
So we'll
Alright.
have narrative in there that'll explain that next time. But yeah, point well
Awesome.
taken. We
Thank
could
you.
have explained that. Yeah.
Okay.
May I make a suggestion on the property, the area in question that we have brought that's new? My suggestion would be to take a vote if the majority feel there's enough information to have a consensus vote tonight, or if the planning commission would like more information on those properties brought at the next meeting. And then if the majority feel there is enough to have a consensus vote, to then follow that up with a consensus vote of that we support the change or we don't support the change. Does that seem?
Stepping back, so you're talking about that little lake by the school.
The
So
little
you want to just do a check for consensus? Does
Is
the
there,
committee?
is there enough,
or the-
do people want me to bring, would the planning commission as a whole like me to bring more information to the next meeting? Or do they feel like that they have enough to make a consensus vote tonight?
Okay, Susan?
One quick question to follow up with Commissioner Whalen's question of the school. If that property, because the line's out on page 13 where it used to be all the school, I think on a previous map, if I understood Commissioner Whalen correctly, that we've changed it to be with this mark. And should we, I'm not opposed to that becoming more dense than the past. The question I have is what happens to the entrance there and how the school will view it, and if the school has to sell the property as well. Who owns the lots?
So the entrance, the existing kind of private road entrance is on the school property. As far as we found is there was a conflict between what the current comprehensive future land use map had and what the zoning has. The zoning has it as residential single family. And so since it's privately owned, we went with the suggestion to make it not community facilities.
I'm for more information.
Yeah, I was going to say, would it be an option to just have you send out information via email, as long as there's no replying to it, that just gives us more information about it? And then at next meeting, we can have it as an agenda item to open discuss if we have any questions about the information that was sent.
Yep,
And-
sounds like there's, that's an
And then
unofficial
I
consensus for that, so I will
saw
do
the
that.
Head nods that we'd like some more information. So I'll go ahead and just do a quick check for consensus. Do we want some more information about this potential rezoning near the school?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Thank you.
Checking, yes.
Just one comment is that we're not just talking about this little piece of property. We're increasing the density in this entire residential moderate area, all the way around the lake, all the way down and all the way
It's currently zoned,
residential moderate.
no, residential multifamily, which is,
12 dwelling units per acre, 18 if it's senior housing
Yes.
included. So there's a density bonus of 50% if it's senior housing. So you're starting with a max,
Yeah. and then
So it
going
is
to 30.
increasing.
So it is
Yeah.
increasing,
yes.
So
that
it-
entire area.
It does sound like we need to have more discussion on if that fits. So,
Just a comment.
And there's some, there are some also particulars that we could help you look at, like, we have a range of density in there, but once you add parking and setbacks and other factors, you might find that you might actually not be able to fit all of that in there. So I think there's some sensitivity analysis that we could do on that to help you make decisions on that. So,
Yeah.
okay, we can bring that back
Okay.
as well.
great. Commissioner Whalen?
To Manager Stallnecker's point, I appreciate seeking clarification because I know you want to move forward and get it done. Maybe we could do a round robin or just what are the concerns we have so you have some sense of, well, what do you folks need to know?
Yeah, that sounds good. You want to go ahead and start?
Sure, well, I
Perfect.
brought up the issue of future land use designation on older zoning maps where there's a chunk, I don't know how to describe it, the leg of the L in that new property? This. Okay.
Just this property.
Right. So we have a challenging map history, and I feel your pain, and I appreciate the work you're doing and trying to up a level and make it all better and more clear. But future zoning maps, future land use maps, used to say that that area was reserved for community facilities. So that was point number one, and perhaps a discussion with the school superintendent. Do they want to weigh in? Past, I mean, there's just a lot. I think also what would be helpful for me is to have a sense of where's the wetland boundary? What's the designation? I know it's a wetland area, but is it 50%, 20%? I understand there's a need to balance what the school is hoping for with, well, that leaves us with a parcel where 85% of it is, we can't develop it. So that would lean me towards, well, maybe the school's got to lose on this one. So is there some sort of a broad brushstroke preliminary understanding of the buffers associated with the wetlands? And I know that means a category, and it's not as easy. The other point that I have a concern with, and it's a little more generalized, and it goes to Mr. Arango's comment about a shared environment, or I would say it's a shared environment. What you do on your property affects everybody around you. And so doing that integration of making heights and intensities and things work so you don't have these blips. So I appreciate Manager Stallnecker bringing up that point of it's got to make sense. So I can see that as a potential area, but again, so much of it is what would be reasonable standards? For example, you're changing an area, intensifying the density, increasing the building height. How is that buffered? Within the discussion or information, is it possible to get something that would say, the taller you go, the bigger the setback? The taller you go, the denser the landscaping has to be between you and that single-family home? It would be helpful because it's this uncertainty. It's sort of like shoot and then aim. It's because and it's hard to get the whole package together, but it would be helpful to really understand what would an impact be. And as Commissioner Boyle brought up, well, there's other property nearby. Maybe we ought to be having a conversation with those folks, which brings to mind, I apologize, I'll stop, I hear a sigh. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll carry
I
on.
wanted to ask a question to ask further up. I'm wanting to figure out where we're saying we're going to raise the building height in this comp review.
I
I
think
don't
there's
see
a bit of,
anywhere where it's,
if you're, right now, we don't have an apples to apples comparison of what these densities mean. And so we're going off the assumption that this is equivalent to our moderate or high density existing, and we have different height.
in the residential or,
Yeah, in the residential zones
so what's
versus,
the highest we can go?
in residential, I want to say it's
35.
35.
35 in the other areas?
And then, and a,
Business is taller.
yeah,
So
This
business
is
is
a
taller.
residential, so it wouldn't be any higher than 35.
Well, yeah, so it's making just, we
But we
just don't
can-
have, we don't have an apples to apples yet.
Right,
So,
but we can make that definition, can't we?
yeah, and that's what she's saying is that
I mean,
I want to make
I'm
sure.
just trying to understand
Yeah.
what she meant. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So the last thing I would say is, in that Commissioner Johnson's comment points to the need for, within that information packet, and concise description of building heights, because as Manager Stallnecker brought up, you want to have more land or space, that means something's got to go taller, because you've got to, if the goal is 18 dwelling units per acre in this building, and the building, if you want the small building footprint, that's going to make it taller. If you want it a lower height, you're spreading out the building footprint. So it's a floor area ratio concept that is a little more sophisticated than our current code, and that's going farther ahead. But I won't say any more, but I would just appreciate information on, a broader sense. And I appreciate the opportunity to learn more. The challenge for me, as Commissioner brought up, Commissioner Boyle, is, well, what about the property to the north? Why isn't that property also included in this designation? Because there's other areas where we have existing buildings and the zoning is going to change. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know how that process works. When are these changes going to be in place? So why not fill that all the way forward? I don't know why you wouldn't,
Yeah.
kind of a
and,
thing.
If it's okay that I interrupt, I do agree that it would be nice to have a little bit more of a zoomed in where we saw the parcels so that we were able to, this is just new information, so we're just kind of now at a point where we're speculating and guessing what's going on around it. So if we can get a zoomed in, it might help with the
Yes,
conversation
I will
for next
bring
month.
more information
Perfect.
about that specific area, the rationale, why we're just looking at those properties, and
Okay.
what our code says with all of that.
Yeah.
So we will
And
bring
I-
that to the next meeting.
Okay, perfect. And then along with that, it may be good to, because I know there's some concerns about the driveway stuff as far as just being a little fresh on what the rules are as far as if you're a commercial developer, because in that case you are a developer, what kind of traffic impact, what that process looks like, and that they can't just take over the school's driveway, those sort of things, just so we have that conversation kind of covered.
Yep.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
Throw fire into fire.
Okay.
If we go to Emerald Street, there's a big piece of property for sale there.
Mhm.
It's been for sale for quite a long time, and we all know who owns it. And even though it's in the middle of the single-family area, it seems we could do a low-density multi-duplex, no, nobody agrees. Wouldn't happen, or you don't agree?
I think it might be beneficial to look at some of our larger parcels
That's a
that
pretty
are
big
in the
parcel.
single, huh?
It's a big parcel
It is, but it's a challenging parcel.
because of the hillside.
Because of the hillside, because it's square. It's hard to put streets in a square thing. I think, again, it's under the, it will qualify for the middle housing that we're looking at.
I'm talking, yeah.
Because all properties in that zone will have to allow duplexes and some sort of variety of that.
Not big things.
Yeah, so it's already in that, and I think we're fine there. And there, so
Okay.
there will be, I anticipate there'll be some more flexibility within those parameters of the density that's, and the heights and stuff that are in the area, but I don't think it would make sense to bump it up.
Okay.
So
Beyond that.
if it's possible, because I think you guys have probably already explored it, we only have a handful of large parcels that can really be developed anyways. If we can just have a one-sheeter that says, these are the 5 large parcels and this is what zones they fall in, so that we can kind of go, oh, okay, cool, check that box.
It's a cross street?
Why don't, but they've already done the research on what,
19th and Emerald by
19th.
Hill Tower.
oh, okay.
Thank you, Hill Tower.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. And I think one of the things that we also want to look at is if there's large parcels in your single-family zone, which will now become middle housing, like what does it look like to do a subdivision where it's not just single-family and there's a mix?
Yeah,
Because, talking about getting good outcomes, that's really where you want to start to think about that. And I don't think, or don't feel like some of the resources that have come out thus far have really addressed that topic. So we'll take a look at that and come back with some thoughts.
And I guess, again, a reminder that, and I know it's, you have these different layers, but the future land use map, when we adopt that, we will then have to follow it. Basically, your zoning map has to agree with it, but you can have several different zones within a future area. So within the, urban residential, you could have 2 or 3 zones underneath that. But until those zones are created and work through, we're still working under our current zoning. So our current zoning has the lot sizes and the heights and all of that. So just because the future land use comprehensive plan says this is what we're picturing in this, until we do that second half, it doesn't automatically change that. It doesn't override what the zoning says. We just have to make sure by the time we're done with this process, they're all in agreement.
okay.
Yep.
Yep. Any other, I think we were kind of just giving you just
Yeah, so we were
a
just.
zoom in map of,
So I get that we want more information on that. Is there anything else from this presentation that you feel you need more information on for either framework or us?
Is it unethical for us to approach the school district and ask them about this, or is staff going to do it, about this property?
I will come back. I want, let me look at this more. Like I said, the zoning did not match. I don't know that, anyway.
We need
Honestly,
to
I want to,
clarify first.
I also want to talk to the attorney if we're okay picking, designating something that isn't school property. There's some stuff there that I will bring back conversation on at the next meeting,
Okay.
and if that's appropriate or not.
Okay. So again, as long as we're not sending emails and replying and stuff like that, I don't feel like you have to wait until next meeting to ask questions. Please continue to send questions to staff. If it's information that's helpful for the group, staff can send stuff out to us. And as long as we're not replying and creating, that we're not creating a meeting outside of the public process. So please feel free if you're not, I think we're gonna have a little discussion about probably formatting a future meetings so that we feel a little bit more on tasks and able to follow along a bit more. But with that, I think that kind of covers the presentation for today. Last round of just questions or comments for them before we get into agenda item 7C, which is, do we need extra meetings? When are we meeting next? And next steps. Yes, Commissioner Whalen.
I want to thank staff and consultant for being so willing to take in consideration and deal with the flame blower background in, it's just a pent-up issue and history that sheds light on what we're dealing with now. But I would really value an understanding of how this will work. For example, the parcel that's already been discussed, if you look at page 16, which is showing lines at a diagonal for where you're going to see the future land use designation for open space. So if you look at the parcel that's already been discussed publicly, here's somebody trying to sell a parcel, and we're looking at a map that says at the intersection of Emerald and 19th, we're going to expand the park further. How does that process work? A question to the attorney, and again, past history. There was a beautiful idea along Fifth Avenue to make it a whole nature preserve area, really build on the High Labos, and the first question people said, what's that do to the value of my property? What's the future? So if I was that property owner, that would be a question that would come into mind. So if there's some place you could direct us to understand that better.
I think that's one that we were going to correct. It would actually, it needed, yeah. I don't know that we
It's a great
were.
place for a park.
It would be,
It's a
but
great-
I think when we talked, we were not going to have that because it is a,
M1 zone or whatever. But of course, it's right next to a stream and in wetlands. And birds and fish and.
unless I'm looking at the wrong
nuts,
one.
so we'll just put a
And an
business there.
additional comment is just, I have a future land use map that is old vintage, happy to share it, that shows what I'm saying about the school property
See, I thought
issue.
that's- Yeah, that one need to be correct. Yeah, it just missed when we talked.
Yeah. Okay, any more comments? Questions? Once, twice? All right, so with that, we'll move to agenda item 7C, which is kind of just next steps for comp plan, next meetings, and if we want extra meetings. So do you want to stay in the room because it has to do with our schedule?
Do you want us to get back to you after we talk about schedules? Or, I don't know what,
Next
Yeah, I
comp
mean,
plan
we're
meetings?
Amenable to whatever you would like to do. I will say that I think fairly quickly, we're gonna be submitting full drafts of materials, so you'll have, all of the content to be able to dive into. If you want to, use something like Convio again, or, some other way to collect feedback outside of the meetings, we can certainly do that. But with that said, if, we need to come to another meeting or two, that's fine for us.
a note that I took is it would make sense since February's meeting is really quickly, and there's some ideas, things I'm bringing, and we're talking about doing our planning commission policies, also to work on a more detailed schedule, both what, I can get together with Framework and see exactly what they're thinking to kind of break it down into smaller chunks, as well as the second half of stuff as we get into more of the zoning and that stuff, that we can come back in February. I can come back in February with a much more detailed, this is where we're thinking those things are going to hit. So then we can decide, yes, we probably do need extra meetings here or there. And it would help, I think, to understand that we aren't ignoring that second half of that zoning, that this is where we will get to talk about the zoning maps, where we will then tie in what does that mean for design or new standards or new guidelines based on the fact that we're going to be changing stuff. So it seems like that might be very appropriate for February, is to bring back a much more detailed, pointed schedule.
Yeah, that's great. I think the other thing we can think about, like, what are next steps, what are we not going to be able to accomplish this cycle that we want. Because really, the comprehensive plan is meant to be kind of the starting point that, 20 years to kind of implement. So, again, I think we want to be mindful of the next steps as well.
Yes, Commissioner Whalen?
So I really, in bringing up the agenda topic, thank you for the conversation on it. I think it would be really valuable to have our next steps mapped out, because as I recollect Manager Stallnecker at the council meeting saying, we have a grant funding commitment whereby we have to send a draft in, as I understood it. And in past practice, it seems that once it leaves the Planning Commission, it goes to council and it goes to, what is it now, CTED, or is it Department of Commerce now? But, so I'm thinking, there's a lot of ground to cover very quickly, so I really appreciate a thorough thought.
Yes, the goal is to have a planning commission hearing by June. So,
Like I said, we more or less have the drafts done with some fine tuning that we need to do. One thing I think we are in a good position to do, the big reviewer, I mean, you do have to send it to the Department of Commerce, but they will need some comment. But the formal review is with PSRC. And because this is such an unusual cycle, they're going to get inundated probably in like April or May or whatever. So I think we're actually in good position to maybe get it to them a little bit earlier. That doesn't mean that the city can't still be working with it, but if we can kind of work with you over the next couple of months and get in ahead, that will give us plenty of time to identify if there are any compliance issues or whatnot. But I can say that we presented some very detailed information for one of our other clients and how we approach the whole thing, and it was very well received, and we're using the same approach here. So hopefully that will help in the review, but I think if we could get ahead of it, we should do that. So we'll work with Anjali to get you more information on the specific
Thank
schedule.
you.
Probably be back here pretty soon.
Just one more comment, as was brought up by the Convio methodology. Once Sarah invested all that time to help us get good at it, it was a really helpful communication tool, so I hope that would be something that's possible to incorporate in the final draft.
Next week. So we're using it in other cities, and people seem to like it, and it works well. So
Yeah,
it'd be great.
thank you.
That's really what the tool's for.
Thank you for your work, and thank you to staff. This has got to be big and complex.
All right, so we kind of summarize with 7C. We're going to kind of just send some more questions to staff, but then staff's going to return in February with just kind of more of a general update. Then we can decide next meetings from there. So that takes us into agenda item 8, which is staff reports.
yes. So I don't know if everyone checked their emails, but you should have gotten an invite to the Bridge Warehouses. We're offering 2 tours. One was last week. There's one tomorrow at 4:15. So if you've not partaken in one of those tours and you would like to join us tomorrow, we would just meet up at the warehouses at 4:15. It's probably about 45 minutes at most. And
Not
then
for drinks at my house afterwards, but we're doing FAFSA forms.
And I think a couple new hires just for the city in general. We have we created a new position for a finance, I believe, administrative assistant. I don't know if I have the title correctly, but she starts tomorrow. And then we have another officer coming on to fill the one that decided to go to, I think, Buckley. So yes, and my permit tech's very excited because she's now has a tiny bit of seniority. So she was very excited. I think that's it for now.
Great. And with the staff, is that hours are still Monday through Thursday, though, for the
So yes,
site,
so we're
correct?
open Monday through Thursday now from 7 to 4:30.
Okay.
And we're trying to have everybody on the same, all the buildings are the same. And then we're closed on Fridays, but we are here working every other Friday.
Okay.
7 to 4:30 or 7:30 to 4:30?
7 to 4:30. We are here super early. I am slowly getting used to it, but
Okay.
those off Fridays, we've had 2 of them now, and it is nice to be able to, I got to, the last one I spent with my daughter doing some special stuff. So it's a nice, and we've had some good feedback from we've obviously been doing a lot of interviews too for hire, and we've gotten real good feedback on that just as an option for people and stuff, so.
Great.
Can I ask
All
a
right.
question about hours?
Yeah.
Just a quick question. Is the Public Works Department still closed to the public late afternoon? Because I think there used to be a time when the public could not go in after 3:30. Is that now gone, or is that still in place?
No, we are now all open till 4:30. So all of our buildings, I mean, the upper campus, we are open to the public. You can walk in anytime between, well, I think it's 7:30, public hours, sorry, or 7:30 to 4:30.
Right.
But yes, we're not closing early anymore. I think, yeah, we do get a half an hour in the morning just to sort of grab everything, but most people aren't coming at 7. So public is 7:30 to 4:30, but we are here at 7.
Well, I hope you're enjoying your 3-day weekends every weekend.
Every other
Every
weekend.
other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is
Oh,
nice.
with the 9/9s. Nice. All right. So commissioner reports. We'll start on your side today.
Not much, except I want to share that I saw surveyors on Meridian last month, and I remember being in an Edgewood meeting with their transportation consultants of where they wanted to deal with the LOS, low service areas, and putting Meridian strips, just like on South Hill, down Meridian. So I passed the information on years ago, 2 years, it's probably been about 2 years when they had that to Nick, who was our Public Works Director then. And it'll be curious if that's what they're doing now, because it would seem that maybe the median strips would alter how people come into our shopping center
Oh,
and to the banks, and not knowing how they're going to plan it. And it was Transpo that was doing their review, and the information was sent to Nick. So if you could pass that on to Dustin for me to
And I do
check.
think he's been in conversations with
Okay,
them.
good.
but
Yeah,
yes,
and I
it
was,
will
oh, it's
change.
going to happen because it's state and Edgewood, not us. Anyway, that's all.
All right. Commissioner Oler, or Vice Chair Oler.
Yeah, I think I have a comment about process. When we have a meeting, there should be sort of an opportunity for everybody to speak equally. I don't see that's really happening. I would challenge us all to make sure that everybody's included in the conversation. We don't have a few folks dominating. Sometimes you need to yield the floor and have other people speak. That's just fair, especially if you talk a lot. That's what I got.
Commissioner Olmsted.
Happy New Year. I have no comments.
All right. I'll just say thank you for nominating and voting me into this position again. That was kind of a cool thing to come back to. So thank you for that. And with that, in a new year, and I'm still very much learning. But if there's feedback on how I can be better attentive and coordinating that correspondence and giving everyone some of the floor. I work from home more days than not, and I'm happy to meet anyone and have lunch, coffee, dinner, drinks, whatever. As long as I can put food or wine in my mouth, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And then I also want to say, I noticed the acoustic panels today. I don't know if it really helped, but they look great. So that's a huge achievement to have those not sitting in the corner anymore.
They got up.
They've been up for a month.
Well, I wasn't here last month. They might have been here.
They weren't here for that,
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't know if Susan's been to council or not, maybe not.
Interesting.
But I just want to say, check it out, guys.
It reverberates back.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all I had. Go ahead.
Go.
Thank you. Congratulations on accepting the chair position in your absence. We're like, does she really want to do it? But yeah, I had a couple questions. First of all, is our next meeting really on Valentine's Day?
It is currently.
Good.
Do that?
Okay. Check. We're on for Valentine's Day.
See, the mayor was very concerned, and I was like, it is, okay,
I
but.
have a date, but
You have a date?
I have a date, but.
I had a question about the property on, I think it's 28th, across from Uptown. Supposedly, the rumor is Sherwin-Williams Paint, but then I seen a for sale sign, so is it not a done deal?
So, no, what it is it's a business model. Sherwin-Williams is going in. So the people who, if I remember what they explained to me, that the company that owns the property, they buy property, they get a long-term lease from Sherwin-Williams, they build the store the way Sherwin-Williams wants, and then they sell the property to somebody with the long-term lease. So the property underneath Sherwin-Williams does not own. But so their business model is that they buy the property, they build it, they get the long-term lease, and then they sell all of that to somebody else. So
Gotcha.
yes, I have had multiple questions on that one because they're like, hey, there's a sign. So they've started construction and it will be a Sherwin-Williams.
And my last question is, with the comments made, do you think that it's time for the planning commission to go through a course of Robert's Rules of Order?
We
I've
could
been-
probably poke on that a little bit at the next meeting as well. So I'll work on some stuff to help us since I think we're going to have some difference of opinions and we're going to have some tight votes as we go through the comp plan having to move it forward. So yeah, I'll try to put together maybe some stuff that we can all kind of agree on to make sure that our meetings go well. So
Well, when, 15 years ago, you had to go through a course as you were appointed to the planning commission, a Robert's Rules of Order course. And that has gone away. Actually, I think I may have done it twice. Once for council and once for planning commission, and that seems to have gone away.
I think you do an online course.
there's,
but
I don't know if it's specifically Robert's.
yeah, there was one. Yeah.
There's a good chunk of.
Is it?
Yeah, there is an online course, but with that said, putting it to practice, or at least in my seat, putting it to practice and remembering and doing it once a month, it does get a little like, what was that again? Or trying to remember what needs emotion,
Even at
what doesn't.
Council,
and-
sometimes we get some obscure
Yeah.
stuff and
And I've
without,
been in other public meetings too, where it's
Yeah.
also just as
That might
much,
be
yeah.
yep.
It could be a lot more structured too, with everybody gets a chance. Oh, we're having comments now, then let's check with everybody.
Which we've talked about, and I think we
Yeah.
got off
Yeah.
track, so we'll maybe go back to that.
No time limit,
And a time limit would be great too.
for the first round at least.
All right, so yeah, we'll come back in February with some stuff, I think, that will hopefully make everyone feel a little more comfortable.
Sounds good. All right.
Uh,
Last time?
Thank you. The first thing I'd report to the Planning Commission is having attended the tour at the bridge development on Fifth Avenue. I would say it was a worthwhile use of time. The people who were conducting the tour were very willing to answer any question. I don't know if we will have the same people present. They were really very accommodating, and it wasn't like, hey, we're this is what we're doing, and how come you don't know that? I mean, it really was, oh, let me tell you how we tried to work to address this neighbor's concerns. Here's what we did. It was a really, it was a positive exchange. And to hear comments such as, and the building that's completed is the biggest of the 3 or 4 that are going to make up the, what is it, over 2 million square feet. And one comment was, it's a mile walk to walk the perimeter of the building. I mean, so to go there and just see the size of things, impressive. The idea of a council planning commission retreat would be great. I welcome the idea to improve our policies and procedures. Yay, yay, yay. I also have attended the council meeting regarding the sign code and see that there are some differences of opinion between what the planning commission presented. So just watching that discussion, and I'm sure Manager Stonlecker has just all sorts of reports and things to work on to address their concerns. Regarding properties that cause me a question, some have been already mentioned. The corner of Taylor and 23rd. Does the Department of Ecology really monitor what's going on? The Surprise Lake outfall area, I'm really surprised at how it's defoliated. It's like, what if at the next meeting, or perhaps now, just what's going to happen with that? It's deforested. They're driving all through it. It's scary.
Unfortunately, there is a chunk of that is actually PSE that insisted, because of their rules, they took down more trees because they're putting up poles so it's not the church, it's them. But there will be, I mean, it'll be towards the end that they will have to do all the plantings and build up what's there. And there's a lot of work that they will have to do at the end. And yes, both Department of Ecology and our own stormwater are out there regularly. They've been out there monitoring, they've met with them. So it is being monitored by everybody, so.
Okay. Thank you for that update, and that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, great.
Oh, wait a minute. February 14th. What are we doing? Are we?
That was going to be
Are we-
the next agenda item, so. Next regular meeting is scheduled for February 14th.
Oh, please, no. I've got a better offer, sorry.
What are the typical, have you already had the conversation about room availability and when we can possibly change that to, or?
I'm always available.
I'm available.
So if you wanted to move it, I don't know if we want to move it left, right, or.
Especially since we've had a shorter period in between.
Oh, that's right, because today's the 31st, so yeah, it's like in 2 weeks from now. So, because what, Parks the following week?
We could do a Tuesday?
What?
we?
What are people's schedules?
You can only do a Thursday? Okay. We could do a Thursday, maybe.
Like the 15th?
I could make a Monday work.
Can't do Mondays. City council's here. They won't let us bump them.
That's right.
Darn.
So what are we doing?
We're looking at moving the Valentine's Day.
Oh, for us old married.
Thank you.
All right.
I mean, the next day is fine.
What is the 15th for everybody, which is
I
a
am
Thursday? Do people have?
Did we say the 15th?
Yeah.
Well, the date's going to go well for her on the 14th, so she's going to go out and get on the 15th.
You'll make her blush.
Commissioner Wayland, is the 15th? Do you know if it works for you?
That will work. I can accommodate that. Thank you.
You can accommodate
Same
that?
time, 6 o'clock, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, I could do that.
unless you guys want to go earlier. We're getting all wild and crazy.
Valentine's
I can
Day,
go
though?
earlier.
For the single folk? No?
No.
No? Okay. Oh, I'm the only
So does the
Parks and Rec
15th
fan.
work?
It sounds like the 15th works.
Same time?
Okay, I
So-
think Thursdays are always clear in here, so I have to double check council, and I don't have that on here, but I think we're good.
Okay.
Ooh, look at us.
So are we all in agreement? February 15th, 6 PM?
I make a
Can do-
motion,
We can motion and, yeah,
I make a motion
okay.
to move our regularly scheduled meeting for February, currently scheduled for February 14th, 2024, moving that meeting and making it a special meeting, because it's not our regular scheduled time, to February 15, 2024, 6 in the evening until 8 in council chambers.
So seconded.
All right, we have a motion to move our next meeting to February 15th at 6 PM, and it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, so with that, I will see you all February 15th. It is 7:57.